If you've got a high energy spaniel, you've probably been told they need lots of exercise and lots of walks. I mean, why wouldn't they? They're a working breed, right? So what do we do as owners? We give them longer walks, give them more freedom and let them run, but they are still completely off their nut. What if less was actually more? You're not necessarily doing things wrong, you're just not really getting much back for the effort that you're putting in. Spaniels are labelled high energy, and of course, rightly so. Owners are often told they need to walk them more or give them more intensity exercise in order to quote unquote tire them out. There are a couple of common things that I see people do that are unfortunately making things worse, such as longer and longer walks. Back in the early days, this is exactly what I used to do with my Springer Spaniel. We'd go out for hours upon hours on end, get home, and you know what the cheeky little shit would do? Go and pick up his tennis ball and start running around the house with it. Yeah, I've been there myself. Something else that people do is high intensity exercise every single day, which, don't get me wrong, is pretty good. However, if we are hammering our dogs every single day, not only are we creating an athlete, but we could be causing some detriment to their joints, which we need to be vigilant of. This one goes a little bit under the radar, but giving our dogs too much freedom too soon. If you give your spaniel too much freedom too soon, chances are what you're going to find is a spaniel which has gone from being your pet to now being self-employed. And once your dog has reached self-employment, it can be quite difficult to get them back. I'm going to show you how to structure your walk so they actually help your spaniel. But first of all, there are a few things I'm going to need you to stop doing. And these alone can actually make a massive difference. First things first is letting your dog run the walk. It's not Jimmy's going to walk himself to the park anymore. It's you're taking charge and you're deciding what happens on that walk. Just like I said before, the more the dog leads the walk, the more that dog becomes self-employed, and you're just the idiot holding the lead. Something else I'm going to advise you stop doing is turning walks into constant excitement. All you're doing is creating an unhealthy obsession, which is just going to shoot you in the foot later down the line. Your walk should feel balanced. Your dog's ability to go off and do dog things, but you can also tap into fulfillment, both on-lead and off-lead exercises as well. And of course, settling and doing nothing. These should also be a massive part of your walks, because this is the way in which you're going to help your dog regulate their nervous system. And lastly, expecting walks alone to create a calm dog. I've got some harsh truth for you. That's not going to cut it. If taking your dog out was all they ever needed, life would be very, very easy. But unfortunately, that's not the case. Our dogs were bred for a purpose, so we're going to need to tap into that. Doing all of that is only going to backfire on your dog's progress, because all it's going to build is lots and lots of stamina, your dog's ability to just go for long durations of time. And it'll get to the point where you can just bust out a 5K and your dog's still ready to go. And your dog's going to get really good at practicing being switched on, but then when it comes to being switched off, they absolutely suck at it. Think of it like us when it comes to learning a new skill. We work on that skill over and over and over again until we get really, really good at it. The same thing happens for our dogs. If they continue to keep rehearsing being overstimulated and over-aroused, they're going to get really good at it, and that's a problem. And the big one here as to why this is such a problem: their needs are just not being met. You may think that exercise is what your dog needs, and to a degree you would be right. However, we're missing one very key component, and that would be the dog's brain. So let me show you what I do with my spaniel in order to give him a good quality walk that not only gives him fulfillment and outlets, but also taps into all of his needs. So we've just left the house. Now, this is probably gonna be where a lot of people fail, and that's because your dog is already gonna be in a very heightened state of arousal due to them pinpointing a couple of things together that basically mean that you're going for a walk. One of them being probably the lead. So prior to you actually going for your walk, what I would highly recommend that you do is you work through a little bit of some desensitization process. Practice putting your lead on and off your dog, wearing your leash around your neck or something, just around the house or whatever, to desensitize your dog to what that tool actually means. It's very important that we do not put our dogs into a heightened state of arousal before we've even left the house, because then we've pretty much set them up for fail before we've even started. I'd highly recommend you place train your dog so that you can put your dog somewhere whilst you get ready for going for a walk, and that way it just sets them up for success right from the get-go. Then we need to take our actual thresholds into account, so not making sure that they're just going to bound their way through the door upon you going for your walk. Make sure it's nice and calm, you get them through the door nice and calmly, and then you then set off for your walk. Now, I don't actually mind that Sid gets a little bit excited when it comes to us going for a walk, because I want him to find enjoyment in us going for walks. However, we don't want our dogs to pretty much go to DEFCON 10 the minute we leave the house. Therefore, we have to promote calm in order for the rest of the walk to be a success. Slowing things down early is going to help our dogs regulate their nervous system correctly. If they go straight into it at 100 miles an hour, chances are what's then going to happen is we're going to be then setting them up to trigger stack. Small little minute things that they see out and about on that walk is going to then cause an accumulation of over arousal to the point where a smallest little inconvenience could happen, such as a cat darting from a corner, and then your dog is at DEFCON 10 and they've just blown up, and then that's usually at the point where we throw in the towel and we walk on back home. Key things I'm looking for from Sid is, can I have him in a behaviour and he just sit there and not draw any attention to anything else, or release from that behaviour himself? Can I actually get a little bit of some engagement from him? Will he actually engage in me when it comes to putting on his leash and things like that? These are all very important steps in the initial stages. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you what walking from the house to where we now go for our usual walk. Now, I'm not going to lie, our usual walking space is probably a 100 meters or so before I then go into actually letting Sid off leash. But those 100 meters are structured, they're reliable, and there's no pulling on the leash. We've got into vlog mode now. Usually what tends to happen is we'll get to this little bit of ground just here, toilet. I'll give Sid the signal, and then what will happen, toilet, is he'll then usually go about and do his business, go to toilet and whatnot, and then that's like our usual first sticking point for them when we go for our walk. So my expectations of Sid from the minute I leave the house to walking to where I usually would then proceed to either let him off or work on a little bit of some fulfillment stuff with him is loose lead walking. Now, the reason for that is because I'm sure there's quite a lot of you out there that struggle with this, whereby your dog will pull and pull and pull until you get to that park. When you get to said park, what you're then probably going to do is swap them over onto their long line or off leash or play with them or something like that, which unfortunately is going to be reinforcing the behaviour. Therefore, we need to try and avoid that and actually promote that we have a little bit of calm, so that when we get to that space, our dogs don't just lose their shit the minute they get to an open field or space where there's been previous reinforcement history of them being let off leash. So my expectations of Sid is we're loose lead walking, we're nice and calm, just chill until we get there, and then sometimes even when I get there I'll also promote a little bit of calm as well, just so that we don't run into any problems where he gets over aroused and overstimulated. So now just at the entrance to where I usually would let him off, and as you can see, I'm not being dragged, I'm not being pulled over or anything like that, because we're always creating calm. My dog's expectation of when he's on a lead is you are calm. This is your working tool. This is what we use for walking, so that you can be nice and calm and neutral, so that we don't run into any stress or any means of being pulled over or whatever else, which I'm sure a lot of you struggle with. So we're just coming up to the field now, where I shall be letting him off. And I'll show you a little bit of a trick that I do with him to also showcase that calm is still the expectation, even though the lead is off.
Oh, Really, really quickly, guys, whilst I've got your attention, if you have a gun dog breed and you're sat there thinking, surely it shouldn't be this hard, download our free Pet Gun Dog Handbook. It's going to go into detail on why these things are happening and give you practical ways in which you can deal with them so that you don't run into these problems in the future. All you have to do is click the link in the description below and it's going to direct you straight over to the handbook.
So we're now at the field and I'm trying my absolute hardest to not fall arse over tit on this grass because it is very, very slippy with the mud. As you can see, Squibbles is down here, just nice and chill, loose lead walking. Now, I mix it up if I'm being completely honest with you. I'll mix it up on when I let him off and I don't let him off, that kind of thing. It's totally dependent on how I feel the dog is doing. But yeah, I try and make sure that it's nice and chill and nice and calm. So now what I'm going to show you is us coming to a stop and me letting Squibbles off. So what you'll notice, and this is a little bit of a saying that I stick by, is lead off does not mean piss off. And what I mean by that is when I come to a stop and I take your leash off, it should mean that you are listening for my cues, not just going and buggering off as soon as that leash comes off. So what we'll do, we come to a stop. So I come to a stop like this. You'll have a little bit of a look up at me. But what you'll notice, again, engagement. Dog's waiting for my cue. Break. And then off they go, off leash. So this is where Sid will usually have his first bit of off-leash time, just on this field. You might recognise this field, you might not, but we do a lot of our videos on here and do a lot of fulfillment stuff on here as well. But yeah, it's a nice little open space to kind of warm him up a little bit before we get into the big bulk part of the walk. Something to note down here is notice what Sid's doing. He's not nagging me, he's not jumping up at me, he's not annoying me of any sorts. Because this is his time, this is his dog time to go and do dog things. You know, he's just had to loose lead walk for that duration of time as a little reward, as a little bit of a payment. I like to give him this as the opportunity to go and be a dog, go and do dog things, and not have to worry about me until up in a moment. When we get down here, there is going to be a main road, which I will need to put him back on leash for, but once I get to the other side, he will then be let off again. One of the major reasons as to why he's not nagging me is because I'm not the vessel for ball. There's going to be a lot of you out there that, you know, the moment you let your dog off the leash, they're constantly nagging you, constantly pestering you because they want the ball. It's nothing to do with you. It's to do with the fact that they know that you've got the primary thing that they want the most. So they're just going to lose their absolute bonkers shit over it until they get access to it. But because I've created structure with Sid, he knows that he can just be nice and neutral, nice and calm, and still get fulfillment at the end of it. So I'm just handing the camera over to Yaz, just to show you a different perspective of this. So this is the next part of what tends to happen on our walks, is we usually come to this road here. Now, this is a very busy road. Therefore, I always make sure my dogs are on leash when it comes to getting to this point. Because again, cars do fly up and down here like no tomorrow. So we do need to be careful that we're advocating for our dogs. So again, leash just comes on. But as you just saw there, you know, Sid was off lead for the entirety of being on that field. And now we've come to a road where he now needs to have a separate expectation. Now, when it comes to crossing roads and things like that, I don't really tend to ask my dogs for anything because their expectation of being on a loose lead is when your lead is on, you loose lead walk, and that's the expectation. So we kind of just walk on by and walk on past. So this is usually the next part where I would let him off. So I like to mix it up again like before. It's not leash off straight away. It could be walking for a little bit of duration of time first before I let you off or anything like that. But when we come to a stop, usually he'll go into a sit. And then what I'll do is I'll unclip the leash. Again, he stayed where he should be. Because again, even though this is the expectation, he should know that regardless of until I tell you to go, you don't go. Break. Now he's given his release, he can now go off and do dog stuff. So leash goes in my pocket.
And there we go, done. You might have noticed that I'm actually wearing my treat pouch. The contents of that treat pouch is Sid's daily food allowance, and that is a little bit of a power move for if you want to be able to reinforce your dogs on walks. Our dogs are opportunistic learners, meaning once they learn that they can gain reinforcement from something, they're probably going to offer you that behaviour quite frequently. Yes. So something that I like to do with Sid is when he offers me a cool behaviour or something like that, I'll reward it because, you know, it's cool. And he enjoys it. It gives him a little bit of something else to think about on the walk. And it's just a great way in which I can connect with him when he's off leash. Just share this with you because it's going to be really funny, but you'll see the dogs will just start offering behaviours on this stretch of grass because there's lots of different things here that we've rewarded the dogs for in the past. This is a big one for Sid. See if he'll do it. Of course. Yes, but just little things like that, you know, just the more you start to do it with your dog, the more they start actively engaging with you, and, you know, it gets them moving, it gets them nice and active, activates their joints, jumping on different surfaces, interacting with different terrain. It's all really, really important for having a nice, active, well-balanced, healthy dog. Now we're coming up to a part that's quite populated by people. So something that I like to do with the dogs is just have them practice a bit of obedience, siding camp, sit, just for when people are like passing by and stuff like that. Just helps to put them in a behaviour, keep them nice and neutral, nice and chill. Break. But if I'm being completely honest with you, as far as obedience goes, it doesn't stray further than probably like sit stays, down stays. Recall is a big one because like now we're entering into the actual woodland where Sid likes to do his great impression of Forrest Gump and he'll just shoot off in a direction or something. But the good thing about it is I can allow him to do that, but I can reliably recall him back. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to just get my whistle out ready just for if we do need to have a little bit of a recall, just to show you for reference as well. Yes. Something else I like to practice is just as he's pinging around doing his thing, let's get a little stop in there, put him into a stop. Just again, something else I like to do with him. Yes. Pretty much from here on out, this is Sid's walk. Like I'll have him just off leash, running around, doing his thing, but due to the relationship and the desire that I've built with him, what you'll notice is, yeah, he will go off and he will go and do his own thing and so on, but he'll always check in with me. He'll always see what I'm doing, make sure that, you know, he's following along where we are and things like that. And I'll get random instances like this where he's kind of gone off and done his thing and now he wants to stick with me for a little bit, which is fine. I don't have a problem with that whatsoever. I might even reward him every now and again if he stays like this consistently, because it's just a good thing to reinforce. But majority of the time, I mean, you know, we're not far from prey. I mean, you've literally got ducks over there, you got swans and stuff, all things that he would find a lot of driving intensity for. So it's just nice that he can be off leash reliably, and I don't really have to worry about him if I'm being completely honest, because I know he's not going to do anything stupid. He's not going to run off or cause a ruckus. And one of the great things that you'll notice about Sid is even though he's off leash and he's running around and he's doing his thing, he's not overstimulated, he's not darting all over the place like a loony. He's just taking it as he goes, running around, doing his thing, and he's happy within doing so, which is the most important thing when it comes to this. If your dog is massively overstimulated and they're just pinging around off their absolute nut, then we've definitely got a problem on our hands. We are coming up to one of my favourite parts of taking my dog out for a walk, and that is the actual fulfillment and outlet section of what I get up to. It's very minimal, it's not really that much, but it gets the job done and he absolutely loves it. Hey, mate. Of course, as you saw there, obviously
we are in public, meaning there are going to be people walking the dogs and so on and so forth. Commonly, I mean, it is totally dependent on the other person. Like if I see that they're just going to show no interest in putting the dog on a leash, I'll just not bother putting mine on. Sid's very, you know, neutral, very calm. The important thing is though, I can call him off. So if he does interact with the dog, I can call him off and I can get him away from that dog, no problem whatsoever. If you struggle with that, highly would recommend that you do not allow your dog to greet other dogs on walks. But there is going to be a time when it happens, and it's very important that we do follow a percentage of round about 60-40. So that is 60% of the time, our dogs are neutral, meaning they don't pay any attention to the dogs or anything like that. But then 40% of the time, they can have social interactions and they can interact with the dogs in that way, because it's very important that we do not neglect our dogs from being able to socialise, because, especially if you've got a dog that's got barrier frustration, you're probably going to be causing yourself more harm than it's worth. So it's important to have that balance and to be able to utilise it accordingly. This way. Oh dear, Teddy, you make me laugh. We're coming up now to a location where I like to do a little bit of some fulfillment with little squibbles. We'll probably do it here actually, because this is quite a nice little location. Commonly what I tend to do is I will be looking around for areas where I think it'd be a really beneficial thing for me to break out into doing some fulfillment. So one of the things that I like to do with Sid is what I call just a little bit of like a go and find a rabbit ball in some shrubbery of some sorts. I'll bring him in, Signing, come, sit. So usually what I'll do is I'll put him into a sit, I'll get out my rabbit ball. Now I'm actually going to cover his eyes, toss it in there, he's going to hear it land, and then what I'm going to do is I'm going to send him off with his hunt whistle. And he's going to go straight in and have a search for it. One of my favourite things to do with him, he absolutely loves it. You know, it gives him the opportunity to really let off some steam, really put those sensors to good practice. You know, he's a working spaniel, so this is his bread and butter, to be honest with you. He's got it. Okay, fighting for his life. Beautiful. Signing, come. Good boy. Dead. Super. So I'll probably do that round about 4 or 5 times on the walk, if I'm honest with you. And we'll do it in numerous parts. So that's probably going to be the first bit that I'll do it with him. And then we'll go further around and we'll do it with him a little bit further around as well. This is genuinely so much more beneficial than just constantly throwing a ball over and over and over again for your dog. You're allowing them to tap into what they were genetically bred for, which means it's going to make your life significantly easier in the long run. So we've come to another location here. Again, just going to cover his eyes. Covered your eyes there. Yep. Tossing the ball. So the ball's landed. And then what we're looking for, send him in, get him searching for it. And you'll see he'll frantically shoot through that cover like it's no problem whatsoever. Literally like he's just slicing through butter. Really using that nose to locate where the ball is. Yeah, good lad. Getting in there, really working hard. I think we're on it now, maybe. Yep. Good boy. Good boy. Good lad, dead. Super boy. But you can see he just loves it. He absolutely thrives off this. And it's something that I'm so glad that I figured out this little key thing that I could do with him, because it just provides him with so much fulfillment. And you saw just there how much he enjoyed that. If I do that at least probably 4 or 5 different times around this walk, that's more than enough for him to be happy and fulfilled. So I'm going to chuck in 2 different variables this time. I'm going to go out and I'm going to pre-place some scent. I'm going to send Sid out looking for it, but I'm actually going to pick the ball up. So I'm not going to place the ball down this time. And I'm also going to chuck in a couple of little stops as well as he's hunting. So he's in his sit. He's nice and chill, nice and mellow. What I'm going to do, when it's frosted ground like this, what I like to do is I like to just make a little bit of a drag path, and then on the ground, I'll almost like smear the ball into the ground a little bit. Just because what I find happens is, because the ground's like quite cold and crisp, it really kicks up some scent. So you'll see when he sets off and he starts looking for it, he's going to be very intensely looking and searching. So again, placing some scent down. I'm not going to show him that I've put it into my pocket. So there we go, Houdini impression. Ball's gone. I'm going to come back to him. He glitched a little bit there. Don't really know what happened. But yeah, I'm just let him search this ground. Remember, I've got the ball at this point. I'm going to chuck in a stop. Send him off again. So we'll get him searching. And then we're going to pop the ball down in a second. Got to be quick with this one because our spaniels are fast. Ball's down. So I stopped him over there. Oh, hello. Search that ground. He knows it's there. Good lad. Super. Dead. Sit. And there you have it, just another way in which you can provide a little bit more into it for our dogs. So as you saw there, I'll probably do that round about 5-6 times or so as the walk continues at random bits. It genuinely, I'll see a bit of grass or land and I'm like, yeah, go on, have a little hunting session in there. But this now pretty much will be Sid for the rest of the walk. It's just going to be him kicking it about, off lead, running around, living his best life. He's got access to that little bit of fulfillment now, so I don't need to worry about that segment. He can just be doing his thing, cutting about, walking around and seeing what we bump into. So he will be just left to do his thing, and then I will pull him into the side, recall him if necessary and if needed at any given moment, just for, obviously, people of the public and whatnot. But yeah, this is pretty much him. Yes. I'll still reward him at random intervals. Like I said, I've still got his daily food allowance in here. Again, the exercise that you just saw with the rabbit ball, if you're a little bit limited, you haven't got access to a rabbit ball, you can use the dog's daily food allowance as well if you want to. So like say a little bit of grassy area just here, I could scatter some out, send him off hunting for it, and that would still do exactly the same thing as it would do if you didn't have a rabbit ball. Siding cam. So we're now at the end of the walk. So we've walked round, you know, we've done everything that we need to. It's time to now put our dogs back on leash and do the on-lead section of the walk, which is predominantly at the end, where we'll walk back home through like the streets and stuff, which isn't all that exciting to be honest with you. But I pretty much just have Sid on leash for the entirety of that, and he pretty much just will walk how you saw him at the start of the walk. And that is how I like to structure walks with Sid.